who's going to win
I don't
in our
know.
presidential elections.
I do not know, and you heard it first exclusively right here. Boy, what a good one this is. Can I just sort of paint an overall picture? We just have a fascinating battle right now between a new face, the face of America's future, the new face abroad, a globalist, and the torch being passed to a new generation of leadership. That sounds like Jack Kennedy. And he's running against someone who's been in Washington forever, knows how dysfunctional it is running actually as much against his own party as he is against the Democrats, is 2 generations earlier in the sense that he represents an older America of U.S. first, sacrifice, patriotism. Some of that sounds to me like Harry Truman. And so we've got Jack Kennedy versus Harry Truman. That's worth the price of admission right there, my friends. First and foremost, we're looking for change. And the interesting thing is, and this was highly predictable, that once George W. Bush was clearly a thing of the past and not on the ballot, once the Republicans got a nominee, that nominee was going to run as far and as fast away from George W. Bush as he could, and John McCain is. And so Americans want change, and Americans will get change, one way or the other, with either of these candidates. But it's what else Americans are telling us that I think are important. Number one, they want a problem solver. Number two, and this is according to polling data, these were the items that they listed as the most important. Number two, they want someone who can manage the government. Number three, they want someone who can work across the aisle with the other side and get the job done. And number four, they want someone with strong personal values.
The whole concept was reclaiming the middle, and it sounds like you're arguing that that's what the American public wants.
Well, traditionally, that's how elections get decided in this country, traditionally meaning the last 60 years or so, since World War II. It's the middle, the vital center, is James McGregor Burns and Arthur Schlesinger defined it. And then we lost sight of that with a very self-conscious political strategy that was laid out by Matthew Dowd, the president's pollster, and adopted by Karl Rove in January of 2001, actually right after the election, which is, you don't need the middle. He told President Bush, President-elect Bush, you can actually govern by consolidating the conservatives and isolating then the left. And that's what was done institutionally within Congress, and that's what was done in mainstream America. And at the same time, the immediate post 9/11 consensus that was developed fell apart as a number of things fell apart. And so what we then had was corporate scandals, church scandals, a war that split us down the middle, a war that went very badly that split us down the middle. But then, to me, what really defines the last 2 years, and what I mention in my book and outline in detail in my speeches, is that Katrina will prove to be more of a defining moment in American history than 9/11, because Katrina said to the Americans, it's broken, but Katrina had a piling it on effect. There was a sense that with Iraq, and the story is very familiar, it was the wrong war about the wrong thing at the wrong time. And we start, first of all, obviously in the Middle East, the Arab world and Muslim world combined, where you heard terms like catastrophic, and you heard terms like empire, and Arabs and Muslims told us this will bring less democracy to the region, and this is more about empire, more about oil, and that sort of thing. And then we move to traditional allies, mainly in Europe, also in Latin America. What are you doing? You're supposed to consult with us. We're supposed to be friends. This was a screw-up of just massive proportions. And it's incredible how layered the screw-up was. I don't have time to answer your question in detail. But well, it was, believe me. The sense that we have that the surge is working, the surge is a wonderful game of whack-a-mole at the carnival. You know, you bop one and the other two pop up, and you bop two and the other pops up. That is, to a large degree, the functioning of the surge. Now, Sunni leadership outside of Baghdad and to the west have made their peace for purely their own internal political reasons and are going after al-Qaeda. At the same time, you have Shia who are dysfunctional and arguing among themselves and are very corrupt, and some are very ideological. But the bottom line is that at this point in time, there is a sense that the American people have that the war is off the radar screen. In fact, there's even an element of Iraq fatigue. But boy, if you go to the region, and I know you're going to the region very soon, I think you mentioned you're going to Cairo, you're going to hear an earful about how destabilized the region feels at this point in time. For all his reform on the domestic side, and I think that he's very sincere about that, and has somewhat of a record as a maverick, has surrounded himself with neocons who have been discredited, but they are an essential part of his foreign policy team. Arab and Muslim leadership know that he has surrounded himself with neocons, and they are scared about what he means. They're also pretty frightened about war with Iran. No love for Iran and no love for Saddam Hussein, but you don't toy with bombing Iran without toying with an entire region that could blow up in smoke. And so there's a deep concern about John McCain. There is a welcoming of Barack Obama, what it means symbolically, and what it means in terms of new direction.
Is Saudi Arabia a blue state?
Saudi Arabia, you know what? It is so funny because I got a call from a very good friend who is a Saudi prince, Prince Turki bin Khalid, and he called me today.
We've
and
actually
he said,
had him speak here.
He said to me today, look, this is not a poll as good as you do, but he said, I talked to 7 Saudis today, and let me assure you, it's a blue state over here. You know, polls are only as good as the anecdotes that you hear. And somebody told me very recently, we love America. It's the United States we're worried about. And translated, what he was saying, essentially, is that it's policy. And the polls bear that out. You know, one of my colleagues did a poll shortly after 9/11 that was published in CNN, USA Today, and the headline, you know, was, "They hate us." It was a poll of Muslim nations, including Arab nations. And so my brother and I got to thinking about that, and we worked together when it comes to polling the Arab world, and we thought, you know something, if you asked a woman who was just going through a very bitter divorce, what do you think about men? She would say, I hate them. But we said, well, what about your grandfather? What about your father? Oh, no, they're okay.